Hey everybody, it is the Koosh Doctor here. We are back for another tier list video. We have now made it through three full live tournament dates and weekends. They have been very exciting. This last one had a couple of glitches, but that's okay. Just remember, guys, this is a game that we play for free. It's a game that we play for fun. It's going to have glitches. It's going to have things that happen that aren't going to necessarily make you happy. But let's appreciate the good parts. Let's appreciate what we do have. It's an exceptional game inside this Warhammer 40K universe that many of us know and love, and I'm super excited to have it. I'm glad it's been going so well. I'm really excited for the new Eldar that are coming out. Unfortunately, I don't have pictures here on the video, but I will tell you we are probably going to start Calandus out in the unknown, just because we don't have a ton of data. But at the moment, I'm probably somewhere in between the B and C tier from what I've seen so far. A lot of people have found a glitch that allows you to fire and reposition and then attack again. But at the moment, Calandus's damage, the energy damage, has only a 30% pierce ratio. So right now, because armor is king in the game, it's not really allowing Calandus to do a ton of damage. It is nice that Calandus has Overwatch, so if you can Overwatch against something that doesn't have a ton of armor, that can be very helpful. I need some more data, but right now we're probably looking at somewhere in between the B and C tier. I'm going to try to cut this up this week by faction. So hopefully this goes well. Let me know if you guys like the format. And we're going to switch things a little bit up as well at the end. Here we go. All right, this week we are going to go in reverse order from what we did on the last tier list. So I'm going to go Black Templars and then we're going to go up from there, finish at the end. Unfortunately, one of the tougher things too is Death Guard and Black Templars. You just don't see them a ton because you don't have any direct ways of getting them very quickly. You can get some of the Black Templars from the Fall of Octarius campaign, or the Battle for Octarius campaign. So you do have that available. We're going to start out with Brother Godswell. Um, he does have the ability, when you get him up to uncommon, to lower something's armor. Armor right now is the strongest thing in the game, so if you can get him some crit items that will help you get the armor down, that can be very, very helpful. So we are going to start out and put him up in the B tier. Next, we're going to go to Brother Burchard. He actually can be pretty good as well. He's got some good area of effect damage, although the problem is a lot of your AoE damage right now is blast, which doesn't have a ton as far as piercing goes. Right now, armor is king, so you're going to hear me talk about that a lot, so piercing is extremely important. Loading your characters up with armor makes them much, much stronger, and having characters that do well with piercing is going to be very helpful. So he does have some good AoE damage. Unfortunately, it just doesn't get through armor a lot. Next up, we have the Ancient. He does have some cool abilities to buff his friends, and he can help people around him attack again. He's kind of similar to, when we go through Tigurius later on. And he's also similar to one of the orcs that we'll get to, Scraps, that gives people armor, so that can be pretty helpful as well. But it's not the strongest thing ever, and right now the armor buffs don't seem to carry as much weight as just having regular armor on your characters, so he's probably going to end up in the C tier. Brother Jaeger, I still think he's pretty awesome. He can be pretty powerful. He can also taunt, which is going to be a very cool mechanic. I just very rarely see him right now. There aren't a lot of people who have him. So even going through 2 accounts and going through tons and tons of battles during the live arena tournament, I don't even think I saw him once. So the jury's still kind of a little bit out on him. We're going to leave him in the C tier for now. We're going to put him in front of his chapter ancient friend. And then our last guy is going to be Helbricht. Again, another guy that you really don't get to see a lot. He is also a buffing character, so that can be pretty helpful. And then he can do more damage against psychers, which a lot of people like to do when they're doing the guild raids. So that can be kind of nice. But again, he's not a super strong character. Really, none of our Black Templars are. So we will put him in the middle of C tier. Right now, again, we don't have a ton of data on them. They're not great, they're not bad, but we do have some information on those Black Templars. We're starting to see them a little bit more because the first couple of characters you can get now from the Octarius campaign when you were going through with the Orks, but the jury is still kind of out here as well as on the Eldar. Next up, we have got the Death Guard. We're starting to see a few more of those out, but again, we still don't see a ton of them. So these bottom three have definitely been a little bit tougher, and you've also may have noticed they've been moving up or down probably the most as we get more data on them and see how they interact well with other characters. I still think Typhus is good. He seemed to be really strong in the new live tournament arena. Obviously, you can still use him in the Fall of Cadia campaign in certain levels. So, psychic damage is still something that's pretty strong because it has a very strong piercing ratio. And he can damage people around him just by being there. He's pretty tough. So, I'm going to throw him up into the A tier. I definitely think he's a good character. If you manage to get him on a pull, get him leveled up, he will help you out in the arena quite a bit. Malleus, one of the advantages, of course, is that when you are going through the live tournament arena, you are getting more shards for him, so that can be extremely helpful. One of the things that you will notice and that I talked about in my other tier list videos is if you have a character leveled up quite a bit, you may notice that you find that you consider them higher or lower in this tier list based on how far you have them leveled up. Their rarity is going to do a lot with their strength. So if you can get a ton of Malleus shards and you can get him leveled up to higher than just uncommon, if you can get him up into the rare epic range, especially so you can get him with a third item, those things make him a lot stronger. Also, leveling up your characters through their ranks also helps them make them a lot stronger. So you may feel you have a high leveled up Malleus that can do a lot of damage. He does have some AoE. He can prevent Necrons um, from recharging, so that can be pretty neat. I'm still going to leave him down in the C tier. He's relatively tough. He has a little bit of AoE, which can be kind of helpful, but he's just not super strong overall. So I wouldn't plan on being super excited about him, but a lot of people have him, and if you level him up quite a bit, he can be pretty strong. Ratbone, he is your Death Guard healer, so he can be pretty powerful as well. Again, just like all of the healers, they aren't super strong on their own, but they can be good as you get your onslaught leveled up, as you get into the higher levels. The tiered swarms actually can start to do some damage. It can be helpful to have a healer in those, but otherwise they are just not very strong characters right now overall. They can be useful in your teams, but they don't do a ton of damage on their own. So you really have to try to protect them and then keep your more important characters level up. And then that really gives you 4 of your 5 team members to use for damage. Pastilian, I love the dude, but he is super weak. I can't seem to use him in buffing. I can't seem to use him anywhere else. He does start out as a rare character, so you do have the ability to get him higher ranks, higher abilities, but after a lot of these characters that you can only get from requisition drops, unfortunately, it's very hard to level them up after that unless you get lucky and keep dropping them. So sometimes while it's cool to have those rare and legendary characters that fall down, you really can't get them much higher than that because you are relying on lucky requisition drops. One of the things that's important, like right now, the Eldar campaign that they are doing is try to get them leveled up as much as you possibly can during their event, because otherwise you are really not going to be able to do much as far as getting them shards and getting them leveled up. Postilion again, unfortunately, just not super strong. We're going to leave him down in the E tier for now. Corodius, he does have the ability to summon guys, but it relies a lot on randomness. And so while it's cool to have a summoner, you can't really rely on it to bring a bunch of guys down. Whereas other people, you know that you're going to get more summons and that can make them more powerful. So RNG really hurts characters in general and especially in this game. We're going to put him in the C tier because he is a summoner, but he is probably the weakest of all of them. Next up, we have the Astra militarum. We are starting to see a few more of those guys a little bit more often. And again, you have access to a couple of them from fairly early on. Sybil, I'm growing a little more of a fan of Sybil. Once you get her leveled up to uncommon, she can give her people around her infiltrate, which means if you start on an arena level where they are close to you and you want to skip a turn, people can get in close and not shoot at you, so that is very helpful. She is a psyker, so she does have psychic damage, which has a high pierce ratio. So she's kind of a poor man's version of Tigurius. I'm still not the hugest fan of Tigurius overall, so she is not going to be a whole lot better, but she does have some kind of neat interactions that she can do, so don't be afraid to level her up a little bit. Yarick, I am actually dropping down on Yarick. When I first got the game and you first buy him, his $5 when you first get into the game is still worth it. He is an extremely valuable character. He will carry you through a lot of the early game, but as you get up into the later game and you are starting to get in higher level arena, you're starting to get into the live arena, his guys do very, very poorly against things with armor. So when you are in the arenas, you really have to use them to target non-armored characters. And now that people are realizing armor makes you extremely tough and it's really important, Yark is unfortunately becoming less and less powerful. And you get to a point where, yes, it's nice to have the extra hit points. And again, in most of your game modes, he's going to be very powerful. But this is going to be the first tier list where we drop him out of S. And also be surprised if he ever goes back up. Unless his infantry get pierce ratio or something along those lines, if you drop 4 of them down against a Bellator, which is extremely popular, it's not even worth it. It gives you again the extra hit points, but you're doing barely any damage at all. And I think we're going to see even more and more armor as people start to figure out this game. Armor is going to be the strongest thing when you get to arena, which means in the reverse, things that can pierce armor are going to be the most powerful to combat that. Cut Skoden, again, kind of a bummer. He's a really cool looking character. I love him when you're going through some of the campaign. He's kind of neat to have because he does have, you know, the ability to do some AoE damage, but unfortunately, he's just not very powerful at all. So he's headed down to the D tier. Thaddeus Noble, he's somebody else who has dropped down. I saw him more this time in the I saw him more this time in the live arena. The reason being his active ability. The important thing is that it gives them suppressive fire. Um, and so if he hits something with his suppressive fire, it means they can't overwatch. So you can sit him in the back in live arena and drop him down on Certus, which everybody likes to put out front for his overwatch, and Thaddeus can prevent them from overwatching. Unfortunately, outside of that, you kind of hide him in the back. His damage is super random, so it's very difficult to get to work properly. And that is kind of a pain, and he really doesn't do a ton of damage. If you had a little more reliability with his long distance attacks, it would be more powerful. When I was looking at him on paper, I thought he was a lot stronger, but now that I've seen him more often, he's just really not that good. And the only usefulness is that you can sit him back and drop him down and hope that one of his attacks hits Certus to drop his Overwatch so that you can move your more fragile characters in. Creed. I still think Creed is the strongest of the Astra Militarum characters. Unfortunately, he's very hard to get, and I see him extremely rarely. So maybe at some point in time, we're going to be able to get some more data, some more info on him. But again, he and Celestine having that ability to not get one shot is extremely helpful. So he is a bit of a summoner and he protects himself from death. So both of those things are extremely, extremely strong. That'll do it for the Astra Militarum. All right, up next we have the Black Legion of Chaos. Um, these guys continue to move around a little bit, but as you'll see, I still think Archimatos is one of the strongest characters in the game. I am moving Angrax up. He is, as I said in the last tier list video, he is a lot stronger than you would think when the live arena comes around. He's actually really tough when everybody gets leveled out. As you get him leveled up, again, he will get stronger and he can deal damage to people when they try to leave, which is kind of nice. But I use him now in the live arena on my teams, and it's extremely powerful because nobody thinks he's very good. And he can survive. He can survive an Aleph Null attack. He can survive Tigurius attack. He can survive pretty much anything from one-shotting him. So that's incredibly valuable. You can take him, you can throw him up on the point to control it early, and then you can make his opponent drop a lot of resources on top of him to kill him, and then you come back in with your other guys and take over. He's been incredibly helpful. I've actually been winning a lot of battles where I'm going first or second thanks to him. So I think he's a lot better than we think he is, but it is hard to get him leveled up. As you get him higher in his rarity, he does get a lot stronger as well. Volk. Volk is actually extremely powerful in the live arena. He is one of the few characters that if you unload his active only on top of Angrax, you can kill him. He's got really good range, even though he doesn't have good mobility. So if you are using a squad and just slowly moving them up the board, he can keep a lot of things at a distance. His shooting tends to get through armor pretty well, so he is a strong character. I'm going to put him actually in front of, let's throw him actually at the bottom of A tier. He is a strong character, so he's good to have around. Archimatos. I still think Archimatos is the strongest character in the game. He's at the top of my S tier. If I was silly enough to include a god tier, he would be up there. He does psychic damage. His summons do psychic damage. He's good everywhere. He's not super tough, so you try to load him up as much as you can with block items. His second item, getting a 30% block chance with, this is a rare one, 30% block chance with 77 block damage. If you get lucky, he can stand up very tough. And if you can do well enough to drop 4 of his summons down, they can be really powerful. He can get through pretty much anything with a one shot, so he's good in the regular arena, the live arena, everywhere. Go ahead and level Archimatos up. He should be the one that you put the most resources in throughout this game. Harkin. I also love Harkin. He's got a lot of mobility. When he's in the live arena, he can do some good damage. Unfortunately, you have to get his active ability leveled up quite a bit. He does pierce a lot with it, which is very strong. So if you get it leveled up to a good amount, he can one-shot a lot of characters. And again, he's mobile, and he gets stronger as it goes along because of his second uncommon ability. So he can be very cool to have along. We're going to put him let's drop him to the bottom of A tier as well. I like him a lot. I know a lot of people are big fans of Abaddon. He can do some decent damage. He's relatively tough. He is not super mobile. He does have a little bit of buffing. I'm still not really the hugest fan of him. I'm going to throw him into B tier. I know a lot of people like him, but he's not really the strongest character out there for being a legendary drop. And that'll be it for our Black Legion. All right, next up we are headed to the Necrons, one of my favorite legions, factions in the regular game. Unfortunately, not super strong in this game. Makotep, he only ends himself up in the B tier because his buffing ability. Again, he can be really useful if you keep him close to your summons. You can drop him down and use him for the summons, and then your summons can get an extra turn. So that can be incredibly powerful in the live arena and in a lot of other areas, especially the campaign. So you got to put a few resources into him, but you do have access to him early on, and you can get him leveled up as you go along, just not super strong. You have to use him in a very specific way. Emma Spec, again, I really want to leave him down at the F tier, but I'm going to move him up a little bit. His Overwatch is pretty powerful in the live arena. His active ability isn't super good. The thing that you have to watch out for with him, I'll leave him, I guess, in the tier because I do see a lot of people using him. But the problem is when you are overwatching, if somebody's smart enough to realize that when you get within 1 hex of him, he is a million times less powerful. Just know when you see one on the field and he's overwatching, just set up right next to him and he's barely going to do any damage to you. So you got to be really careful with your positioning, and he's just not even that strong when you do have the positioning set up. I do, though, like to use him a lot in Onslaught because you can leave him down, and when the little Tyranids come in, he can just take a few of them out per turn once you have his Overwatch and his skills leveled up a little bit. Aleph Null, on the other hand, he is the one who saves the entire Necron race in this game. He is extremely strong. I have him way leveled up. He's one of my highest level characters on this account. Of course, his scarabs can take over the game. He's got really good armor, so he can take a shot. But pretty much always when I'm in regular arena or live arena, Aleph Null will be the one who I jump forward first. His mobility is great because he can fly. He can also heal mechanical units around him. So if you're putting him in a mechanical lineup, a mechanical setup, especially if you have people like Morvenn Vahl, sorry, if you have a couple of the Orks who are machines, he can be extremely powerful because he jumps in and heals them all, so that can be really helpful. He is right up there at the top, definitely an S tier character. Tutmos, I finally got him unlocked on my other account. He's not as powerful as I would have hoped he was going to be. He can do some decent damage once you get him leveled up away, but it just feels like he's not as good as you would like him to be for taking so long to get him unlocked. And he looks so powerful when you fight him on his level in the campaign, and then he just doesn't seem so great after that. Anafet, for the few people who have been unlucky to unlock him, he is actually pretty strong. He's hard to get as you move up later on, but again, he can pierce pretty well. He can kill people pretty well. I'm going to put him right with Abaddon. I consider them both kind of in that same realm. They're not the strongest, but they're not the weakest. So if you do get them, don't be afraid to pour some resources into them, and they will do a little bit of work for you. But not overpowered, not underpowered, just kind of right there in the middle. That'll do it for the Necrons. All right, everybody, 3 left. We are up to the Sisters of Battle, or the Adeptus Sororitas. First up, Vindicta. She actually has been rising up my ranks. The more you pour into her early on, the more helpful she is going to be. You will also notice you get her very early on, and if you're a free-to-play character, she is going to carry you through this game. She is probably one of the strongest characters in the game. She can get really well through armor once you have her up to uncommon. The big thing you have to be careful for, again, I've talked about this multiple times, you have got to watch out because she can hurt your own characters a lot. So just know that who you attack with her, the first person she hits, is not the one she's actually going to end up dealing the most damage to, so be careful who is around her, especially if they are one of your characters. She doesn't care about friendly fire. She will literally torch your entire team, but she's super strong. So if you're a free-to-play character or a free-to-play player, go ahead and get her leveled up. She's great in every single different mode, so she's great to have on any of your teams. Isabella is fantastic. She is the one great healer in this game. And if you are lucky enough to get her, I don't have her on either one of my accounts, but she is fantastic again in every single different way. She can res really well. She heals everybody around her as soon as they get hit, so she can make your whole team really strong. So she's the best buffing character. She's the best healing character. She can also do damage. So she is just an absolute beast overall because not a lot of people have her. Because right now you have to get lucky to get her. Um, at the moment, she is one of the best in the game, and I don't think she's going to be nerfed anytime soon. So if you get her really on, lucky you, go ahead and get her leveled up and let her carry you through everything. Morven Vol, on the other hand, unlike Vindicta, has been dropping down my tier list more and more and more. When I first got her early on in the early levels and I leveled her up a bunch, she can be very powerful. When you are running through campaign levels, her AoE damage is really strong, but pretty much the only thing I use her now is for lightning victories, just so I don't have to attack very much. But she's really weak. She explodes, so a lot of times you are trying to keep her back, and when she dies, she'll blow up and hurt your own characters. So it's kind of a pain to have her around. She has 5 melee attacks, but her pierce damage doesn't seem to do very well. When you are using her blast damage, that doesn't pierce very well. So trying to use her in regular arena, a live arena, she pretty much never kills anything. If you are lucky enough to get her and you put her with somebody like Vindicta or Tigurius, she can be slightly useful because um, you can have her soften up a few characters, and then Tigurius or another AoE character can come in and finish them off. But she's not really good just by herself, and it's really a bummer when you drop her and you get a legendary character and you're super excited about it, but then she doesn't turn out to be very good at all. Roswitha, a lot of the community seems to be torn on Roswitha. A lot of people have been upset that I have had her so far down in my tier list. I still don't think she is very good, but I do use her a lot in the live arena. So I will move her up to be in the B tier with our boy Angrax. Let's put her at the top of the B tier so people can be happy. Um, a lot of people like to use her in the guild raids, but the problem is she is really, really um, weak as far as toughness goes. Not a ton of hit points, not a ton of armor. So if she gets hit, she will die. It can be really nice that she does a lot of damage to the guild raid bosses, but if she gets hit once, she's done. So I still use summoners in the guild raids because they are going to have more hit points overall, and they're going to be able to do damage over more turns. Where if you get unlucky and she gets hit and killed on the first turn or the second turn, she's really not doing much damage to the guild raid boss. Last one, Celestine. I still think Celestine is one of the strongest characters in the game. Not a lot of people have her, but if you do get her again, it is very lucky. She does super well because she is like a stronger, more powerful version of Angrax because she can bounce all over the map. She can get to the back lines and attack things. And again, just like we saw with Creed, she gets protected before she dies, so she's almost a semi-summoner at the same time. Both of those things can be super powerful. So if you do get her, consider yourself very lucky, get excited, and go ahead and let her carry you through some battles. That's all for our sisters. All right, up to the penultimate faction. It is the Ultramarines. Um, they are extremely strong in the beginning. You want to get them leveled up. They're going to help you get through the campaign, which is going to help you get through everything else. But as you get into higher levels and the end game, they're not going to be as powerful, but they're also not bad. Tigurius has been steadily moving down my tier list. Not the hugest fan of him. He does have some AoE damage, but his Psychic Fortress ability is not really that helpful. He is a lot weaker than his stats would say. He's much easier to kill than you would think, and especially with more people having Roswitha leveled up because he's a Psyker, she can take them out. Another note about Roswitha that's nice to have her in the live arena is she can take out Archimatos, who a lot of people have, and Tigurius, who a lot of people use. So because she's so strong against Psykers, that can be really helpful. Tigurius, unfortunately, probably the weaker of the Psykers. We'll leave him here in the B tier because you probably will have him leveled up, so you'll feel like he's relatively strong. Certus. Certus actually is one of my favorites now as far as Ultramarines go. The difficulty is when you use him in the campaign, he is only single damage, so he can get overrun when it comes to summons, especially when you see a lot of scarabs out there. But in the regular arena and the live arena, his ability to overwatch and his high single target damage can be really helpful. If yours is leveled up a little bit too, he has infiltrate, so he doesn't get overwatched, so he can sneak in and kill the other person's Certus. Or if for some reason they're using Imispec or something like that, Certus can sneak in and do some major damage. So I'm going to put him up in the A tier. He is pretty strong, and you do have the ability to get him leveled up pretty well early on. So let's leave him, we'll put him right there. Right in front of Vindicta. They're both pretty good. If you're a free-to-play player, they're two characters that you're going to want to put a lot of resources in, as well as Bellator. Bellator is extremely strong, but he's a bit frustrating as you get higher level in arena battles. He doesn't do very much damage. So he can soak a lot of damage, he can fly, so he can cover a lot of ground, which makes him very useful. He's really good in the campaigns to soak up damage, so he's a very strong character. But unfortunately, he's not really the S tier I think he was early on, just because he doesn't deal a lot of damage. So again, he's still useful, you still want to have him around. If you get him leveled up, that's a great thing. But because of his low damage output, it can be a bit frustrating as you get higher with him. Incisus, my dude, I love you to death. Unfortunately, you are really weak, as are most of the healers in this game. Again, there are certain times when you're going to want to use him. As you get higher up into your onslaught campaigns, you are going to need to be able to heal. When you're doing the regular campaign, having his ability to heal and AoE heal with his active ability is also useful because it can save you getting 3 medals on a campaign, which is super important. But again, just overall, he's not a very strong character. Kind of a bummer. Calgar. Some people are liking Calgar. If you happen to get him, I still kind of put him in that like Abaddon type tier. He's kind of in the middle. He does a couple of good things. He's not super strong, but he's not super weak. So don't be afraid to get him leveled up a little bit. He is an awesome looking character, and he does have Gravis armor, so he's a little bit tougher. Let's move him in front of Abaddon just for that. But he is a little bit tougher, so that can be kind of helpful. But again, he doesn't put out a boatload of damage, so he's not S or A tier or anything like that. And that'll do it for the Ultramarines. All right, great job, everybody. We have made it to our last faction and one of my favorites, the Orks. I don't know if that's why they moved them to the top of the faction list, but they are a ton of fun to use. Unfortunately, Snotflaga is one of the worst. So we're starting out not very good. He doesn't tend to pierce very well, so even though he's rare, he's not the strongest character out there. I've tried to get his secondary ability leveled up so that when you move in, he'll do more damage. It's really hard to properly position his little grots. The only time they can be helpful is when you are using them in onslaught, and hopefully they don't die. But if you can position him correctly, get a lot of them out early, they will continue to spawn themselves, kind of like scarabs do. But he is unfortunately just a fairly weak character overall. He's probably, I don't know. I'm going to put him down in D tier for now. We might think about that in a little bit, but just not a very strong character. Gibbous Scraps, on the other hand, I do like quite a bit. He can, when you get him up to uncommon, he can give armor to people around him, which is not the most helpful thing, but every once in a while when you um, get lucky and block something, that can be super helpful. As you get his tank leveled up, it can actually do some decent damage, and it can take a little bit of damage. He also, like Alifnul, has the ability to heal mechanical units, so that can be helpful when you're running an Orc lineup, or he can also heal Alifnul, which is really nice. So that can be helpful as well. Still not the most powerful, but we're going to throw him into C tier. Snappereka. I do like Snapareka in we're gonna put him in the can be useful area. He's not the strongest overall, but his active ability to run into things can actually do some really good damage getting through armor, even though it doesn't seem like it should, but the math just doesn't work out correctly. He hurts himself when he does it, but if you get that skill leveled up, especially in the live arena, it can be really useful. He also does have some range with his attack, um, much like our boy Volk does, so that can be kind of helpful as well. Tank Smasher, he has been steadily falling down, 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 down my tier list. A lot of people like to use him in the live arena. I'm going to put him down at E just because he's so frustrating. I got him with my first set of pulls on this account, and I've tried to use him and I've tried to find ways of using him. A lot of people like him in the live arena because when he uses his active ability to run across, he can touch each of the points if you get him set up properly in a line, but he's not super tough. He doesn't one hit many things. So he's just kind of a frustrating epic character. He looks really cool. I love him being, kind of a rider on the Smash a Squid character, but he's just not very strong. So he's made me a little sad. Boss Golgort's, on the other hand, he is the man. He does some great damage. The nice thing, um, just like Abaddon, is that he can do damage um, to more than one person in a turn. So what he will do is, I'm going to move this around a little bit just so you've got everything in a straight line. Um, we're going to put him up here. You do have to be a little careful when you are using his ability. It's really good in the campaign mode and it's really good against the computer, but if you're trying to use it in the arena modes, because they are just automatically running in and close combat attacking whatever they can, they're not using any of their abilities. If they get one shot, they're not going to be very useful, and he doesn't give them extra attack enough to make them all super strong. So that can be a little bit frustrating, but he's great in campaign. He's a lot of fun to use. Usually he will also shoot upon death, so that's really nice to have. Again, very cool character, love him. He'll be, kind of right in the middle there. He kind of falls right in line with that Abaddon Calgar line, where he's not the best, he's not the worst, but he's my favorite of the three just because he has some really cool abilities and he is fun to use. And that'll do it for the Orcs. All right. Last but not least, we are going to do kind of a little bonus section. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the different areas that you can use some of these characters and the way that they can be useful. As you can see, this is kind of my overall. I still consider um, Alifnol and Archimados the two strongest characters in the game right now. Summoning is still king, but we are starting to see some neat ways of using other characters. We talked about a few here in the B tier that can be useful. A lot of people like to use Roswitha again in the guild raids because most of the Tyrannid characters are psychers, so that helps her damage out. But again, you have to make sure that you have her positioned correctly so she doesn't die, because then she's not doing any damage. Angrax is actually tougher than you would think, and Snapareka actually does pretty well with his damage dealing ability, even though it hurts himself. But again, there are a lot of cool interactions with these characters that, depending on the team that you are on, they can be a little bit stronger. For instance, if you put Gibboscraps and Snapareka on the same team, Snapareka can run in, hurt himself. Gibboscraps can run in and heal him. You can also have Aleph Null jump in and heal him. So you do have abilities to get his energy back. One of the other neat things that I actually like to do when you are a free-to-play player, using your Incisus, you can use him to take the first Overwatch shot, and hopefully he won't die. So if you have him leveled up a little bit, what he'll do is he will run in, he'll take the first shot, and then he can just heal himself right back up. Then you can run everybody else in, and hopefully that's helpful to you. Again, some of these things you can do, and they've got neat interactions with themselves. Makotep is another one that a lot of people like to use, and I've seen him, again, if you're a free-to-play player and you're in the arena, it can be really helpful to run your Aleph Null up, drop your 2 scarabs down, then Makatep can run in and use his ability in between the scarabs, and then they will multiply and you'll end up with 4 sets of scarabs on the first turn. And usually 2 scarabs can take out pretty much 1 character of almost everybody. So that can be extremely strong to have. So a few of these characters will have their own kind of special interactions, but these 3 I kind of wanted to go through individually because they are very helpful in the live arena, as is Harkin. And I'm going to make a video soon about mobility where we talk about the terrain and the mobility and how those things interact, and it's important things to learn because it will make you better at this game. But one of the neat things overall is that there are ways to use all of these different characters. So even though every single one of these characters, actually, he's just frustrating. I love Tank Smasher. He's such a cool looking character, and the model's really neat in the game. But he's just frustrating as one of my top early pulls, and then he just gets weaker and weaker and weaker as we go along. But again, pretty much any of these characters, if you have the right team setup, if you have them in the right environment, if you are doing the correct things with them, or if you have the ability to get their rarity leveled up, they can all be pretty strong. So don't feel discouraged if you put a lot of resources into any of these characters that are lower on this tier list. All of them do still have their uses, and all of them can still do things inside your teams and help you progress through this game. Of course, you want to focus on the summoners. Overall, they are going to be the strongest characters still, but I think people are starting to learn how to go against them. And when you are in the live arena, people will go after your summoners first. And it's a good idea if you are in the live arena to go after the other person's summoners first before they can get their summons down. So again, thanks for watching. I hope you made it this far. If you disagree or agree with anything, drop me a like, subscribe, comment, any of those things. I appreciate all the support. This has started from the ground up, and my second tier list video now has like 3,500 views. So thank you so much for that. I appreciate you guys, and we'll see you back out there on the battlefield.